And let's go. So, hello everyone, welcome to the cert-manager bi-weekly meeting. It's the 7th of August 2025. We have an agenda, we have 5 participants, and we've got an hour to get through it, so I don't see a reason not to start. Quickly, I wanted to say in the bi-weekly, as a sort of announcement thing, I posted this in Slack as well. I'm going on paternity leave, and I'll be going in 2 weeks. Unless something happens ahead of schedule, which is possible. But the plan is that I'll be gone from the 21st of August until the 3rd of November, and I'll be essentially entirely unreachable for anything except a nuclear meltdown in that time. So, yeah, if you need me for something, now's the time to be using me while I'm available because I will be gone. Announcement complete. Does anyone have anything they wanted to announce or shout out before we move to the main agenda? General silence means we'll move on to the main agenda. So, first of all, we have a showcase and some feedback. So, Hemant, can I pass over to you?
Yeah, sure. Let
Sweet.
me screen. No. I have to restart my Zoom. Let me just rejoin.
Okay, no worries. I've got to say, Mael has recently been uploading old recordings of the bi-weekly meeting to YouTube, and I got a jump scare when I was on YouTube on my telly and saw my face pop up on a thumbnail for an old meeting. Never get used to that.
Like and subscribe, baby.
Back. Let me share my screen.
That cured it? There we go.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep. Yep.
So this came up in the last bi-weekly where I think Erik and even Richard had pointed out that there were issues with like Dependabot because it couldn't manage dependencies and updates to dependencies well. Me and Adam suggested Renovate, and I was trying to implement it. So I got to a point where I was able to create a config and create PRs from that. So some of them got created. For example, I have grouped some of the dependencies related to like gates and SIG gates into like this Kubernetes package. So everything related to that will basically be squashed into one PR, as you can see. And then I think the other thing was like Azure AWS will also be squashed into one group. And what was the other thing? I think there was like Golang.org X dependencies that will be grouped into one group. Let me just quickly open the Renovate JSON so that. Yeah, so these are like the package rules, which basically Renovate interprets to make sure that things get grouped accordingly. And then any major update, I think it's somewhere in the bottom. Yeah, any major update would require approval from us or like from any maintainers. So that's one thing that I put at the bottom, meaning that it's at the bottom means it gets the highest priority. And then like any security updates to these packages would have a higher priority with labels accordingly. I did run into some issues regarding like GitHub tokens, and I had to create a personal access token for that. I don't know how we will tackle that. Maybe we create like a GitHub app from cert-manager, because that's something that Renovate supports. But yeah, I would love some feedback on this and figure out how we can get this merged.
We've created apps before. That's how I believe our Prow works.
Okay. So we can probably use a private key. Yeah, I'll just share a link to that. The Zoom controls go. Yep, I pasted the link to the file in the chat. Yeah, and also we can like add schedules on here so that we can control like what time it raises PRs and stuff like that. And I've kept auto merge as false, which I guess is the same thing to do.
I'm a big fan of auto merge. If the tests pass, I'm a big fan of auto merge, but I don't know if the rest of the people are.
We have auto merging for makefile modules.
But for
There-
dependencies, we have the license issue. We also have some dependencies which are single maintainer projects. So we could, of course, configure auto merge for some things, like the Kubernetes group, for instance. If the tests are passing and everything builds successfully, I see no issues enabling the auto merge. But I don't think it could be a general auto merge for everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we can like set auto merge for each of these package rules individually too, if you want.
Do we still have the problem with dependencies? I thought I fixed that. Did I not?
When I was reviewing Hemant's PR around adding TCP support to the RFC DNS provider, I noticed that we use a dependency which, at least from the name, appears to be from a personal account. It's not necessarily a problem, but I think we should scrutinize all our dependencies at some point to see.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm just specifically on the licenses. Like we're not. I thought I'd fix the licenses stuff.
Yeah,
I was
will it fail if we get a problematic license into the build?
It should fail if it's like
Yeah.
GPL or something.
Okay,
But
excellent.
that should fail anyway, I think, right?
Excellent.
Oh, well, maybe we need to test that a bit. But
I was also going to say that because license is a generate target, it's covered by verify. So if a license changes for a bunch dependency, the verify target will fail and the PR won't be able to merge.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, like it's not necessarily going to check if the license is like GPL and then turn it and then deny it if that's the case. It's just going to look for any changed license and then require a human review, which is what we want.
Okay, that's good because I think this Renovate setup should run make generate, because if not, it's very limited what it actually can do, because there is a huge problem with updates like tidy the Go mode file. There could be other things like traces of a version in a manifest, or that's common with if you use control again, for instance, if it's not removed.
Yeah, as long it certainly can't auto merge if there's a license change, but
No.
beyond that, yeah, I think it sounds good.
Renovate can run generate, which would update the license file, but yeah, we do, which would pass the validate if the license changes. But I don't know if there's another check that says if the license changes, don't auto merge. We can probably do that though.
Yeah.
We can probably auto merge unless this particular path is.
If literally the licenses file has any changes to it, then disable auto merge. That sounds like something that should exist if it doesn't already.
Yeah. And if we cannot enable auto merge on everything, I don't have a big issue of checking in regular to see if there's anything to upgrade to actually review it. So I think that we will get to something that we are satisfied with anyway.
Yeah, sounds good. And
Okay.
thank you for the demo. It's
So yeah, a quick update, like how do we proceed from here? Like do I raise a PR for this? And then like how do we handle like the token part and stuff?
So the token needs to be handled by an owner of the org.
Yep.
So that'll be And I think that's listed somewhere. I can't remember where. It's probably in the GitHub members tab. Any one of those should be able to help you out with a token. And as for the rest of it, yeah, the next step would be to raise a PR. Like, I'm pretty happy with the format it generates in. I like it. I like Renovate. It's much more configurable than Dependabot, and I
Yeah.
like the fact we could do things like run, make, generate after a dependency pull.
Mhm.
I'd like to see it used for more. But yeah, so let's if you raise a PR to
Mhm.
get it in, and we can look at how we do the token. You just need to probably talk to someone in Slack, one of the organizers in the Slack channel.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I can do that. Yep. Yep, that should be good.
So after that successfully merged and hopefully working, I'm hoping the next step will be to see if we can reuse some of this in our other projects. That would be super nice. Probably not everything, but at least some parts of it, so we don't have to repeat ourselves.
I
Yeah.
think it should be makefile module to
Yeah.
auto. That way you can just add it to the module vendor file, and then it just sets it up for you, and it has the same config. And if you want to change the config, we do it in one place.
Yeah. But we start off with cert-manager, right? Since we have the problem there, right?
Yeah, start
Yeah.
with one repo. Let's get it
Yeah.
to the point that we're really happy with it, and then we'll make a module out of it and put that config everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
For the record, we also have the same problem in the new project webhook certlib. The problem is when you have a multi-module Go project. Dependabot doesn't support that. So
Fair enough.
Yep, that should be yeah, it for the first one, I guess.
Brilliant. In that case, we can move on to the second one, which conveniently also you.
Yeah, this is just like I want to help out in reviewing PRs. So I would love to like shadow someone when they're reviewing so that I can understand some gotchas and stuff that I can look out for. Because I know there are a lot of PRs and people are like tagging stuff in like Slack. So I would love to help out in that.
that's super.
Yeah. It's
Um,
I think the difficulty there is that quite a lot
Mhm.
of the work that happens is quite ad hoc. Like if I'm reviewing something, I don't sit down for an
Mhm.
hour a day to look at stuff. Like I just pick it up when I get a second, which makes
Mhm.
it difficult to shadow anything that I'm doing in that regard.
Mhm.
Um, that said, I'm sure I'm sure that I'm sure there's something we can do here. Like at the end of the day, we can start out with you um doing reviews as like you can always say LGTM even if that won't actually do anything, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
you can do a review and then others can add a review
Mhm.
later if
That's
there's
right.
anything that was missed and we can learn that way.
Yeah,
There
that
is
would
the
make
two steps. There's the LDTM and approve. So like we get if you start reviewing and then we get you to the point where you are a reviewer, then when you start
Mhm.
LDTM in, doesn't mean you can start just blanketly merging in because you have approver rights. You still have
Yeah.
that that second validation from someone else.
Mhm.
And of course, if in a review you want to like check something, like you think something's not the right way to do something and you want to validate it, just
Mhm.
at someone or just put it in the Slack channel or you know.
Okay, yeah, I can start with that. I can probably pick up a PR and see, and yeah, and then like if I do an LGTM and then someone reviews it differently, then I can learn from that. That's a good point, actually.
yep.
Sounds good. Yeah. As always, like post in the Slack channel, say, hey, I've reviewed this. Can anyone
Mhm.
else take a look? Like that I love it when that happens. And Peter's done this a few times, I think, where he'll sort of review something and say it looks good to him, and then I know there's a lot of stuff that I don't need to like really carefully scrutinize on it. I just need to check that the whole thing is good to go. I'm not having to like dive into specifics.
That's
Like
yeah.
any work that's done on it is always helpful, so it's always appreciated.
Yep.
It would be great to share some experiences from reviews in general in the community here. I mean, I have my way of doing reviews. I'm pretty sure others have other ways of doing it. So I don't know how that would work, but that could be kind of a substitute for the shadowing you're requesting. So we could have a talk about, in general, how we do reviews to maybe come up with some smart tricks, advices.
Yeah, something like that. That would be helpful, yeah.
I'm hoping we can get Copilot reviews. I've seen Richard using them, and I think they're pretty interesting because it takes off a lot of the load from the, well, non-critical things typically. I would still like a person to review it, but it's a good support actually.
Yeah. How do I
Definitely.
switch it? I think, yeah, the third one, maybe we can skip it towards the end, I guess, because that's like a generic discussion.
It might be long as well, and it's a very
Yeah,
interesting
exactly.
one.
That's why we could pick up other things
So
before that.
the third item being about controller runtime in
Yeah,
cert-manager,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can shift that one to the end. Yeah. It's not the first time we've talked about it for sure. Erik, you are next on the list then. Making it easier to get reviews.
Yeah, it's something I've kind of been a feeling lately. I usually, since I don't get paid for most of my work on cert-manager projects, I tend to work in the weekends, and some weekends I can produce a lot. And I don't feel very comfortable just nudging people on Slack. Like Richard says, you have to mention someone to get reviews. So I'm wondering if someone has any ideas on how to make this easier. We have discussed this before, but the last week I've been feeling pretty hard on these things. So
Would you be more comfortable adding groups rather than individuals?
yeah, probably, but it's also kind of a pulverization of responsibility. Sometimes I've added the cert-manager maintainers, but we all know that some in this group are not active maintainers at the moment. Some are very busy with other stuff.
We could create in GitHub, we could get a cert-manager reviewers team that you could then add.
Yeah.
Because the problem is, like, some weeks I can do lots of reviews, some weeks I'm absolutely swamped and don't want to turn my laptop on over the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will try to kind of reduce the noise because I've been posting a lot of messages on cert-manager dev. But in some cases, there are some PRs that I really want to review, like really, because it's actually blocking me to continue on other stuff.
I think I imagine I speak for most of the maintainer team when I say, like, I have no problem with being at it for a review. Like, if you've spent your own time to do something, I'm quite happy to be pinged. Like, my role, if you like it, as an engineer is changing quite significantly, and obviously I have other commitments in my life, and it means that I'm not necessarily checking the Slack channel frequently, or, like, I certainly am not looking at, like, what I've been assigned to on GitHub or on anything like that. I don't even do that for GitLab, where all of our closed source stuff is. I have no visibility like that. So I have no problem if there's something that's really important and needs escalating, I'm totally fine with it. And I think most people, like, at worst, someone's going to say, sorry, I don't have the availability. To that end, I don't see a reason why we shouldn't, like, you should feel empowered to ask people, because it's a responsibility that we all share as maintainers, and we should, as reviewers, I should widen that actually to the people that are able to review should not feel aggrieved by being asked to review. They're welcome to say no, they might not have the time, but there's no problem with asking them. So I'd say that
Okay.
first and foremost. The second part for me is, like, it's that visibility. So, like, without being there on the in the trenches all the time, it's hard for me to dive in and pick something to start doing because I don't know what the priority of anything is. I don't know, without some context, sometimes I don't know how to get started reviewing something. So I feel like there's got to be some sort of way of having a list of PRs somewhere that like a shared list that everyone can like look at and just kind of like how we have a Jira board internally, and if I want to pull something, I just pull it off the top of the list, right? If there was something like that for cert-manager PRs, I would probably knock through a few of those in a day when I'm sick to death of meetings about planning, right? Like there's kind of a technical solution that might help there as well, but I don't know anything about what exists for that or what it would take to build.
GitHub has something semi-built in for that in projects, where you can create a project with columns, and it's like a Kanban board, and you assign GitHub issues to projects.
Hmm.
So you could say like we could have a review tracking but board and like add it to the review tracking board, and someone will pick it up.
Hmm.
That seems reasonable. Yeah, we have one for design documents that I've
Yep.
just found. I've the issue is always if I don't look at it, I'm not I I need to remember to look at it. Like the cert manager dashboard that I made, I look at that really regularly because it directly ties into what I'm doing, and I've sort of made it part of my routine. If I had a like a dashboard for PRs that need reviews that was, especially if it was ordered by priority, that would be
Yeah, so if you click on a new project, you get two options for templates. One's the template we got where it's like a list view, and then the other one is like a Kanban board style thing. I've just accidentally created one. I'm gonna delete that. Uh,
That sounds interesting. We could use if we can revive the triage as well. That would be nice, at least for issues. I don't think we had a triage party in a very long time. Um, I've, I've been talking with Ashley about this earlier. I've been trying to follow up on approval policy and trust manager to actually resolve some of the issues and open PRs which are there. But in cert-manager, there's a lot. I'm not sure how to handle this. It's a huge number of issues and PRs.
yeah.
Maybe we can gamify it. Every PR you review gives you 10 points.
Oh, that would be
Cert manager
awesome.
books.
We have like a swag store or something you can spend when you get to 1 million.
It's the next evolution of the conference certificates that we issue. It's conference credit cards now with
Oh
cert
yeah,
manager
you come
books.
to us. You come to us, and if you can prove you've got a GitHub username, we can redeem your points. You know what? It sounds stupid, but that would totally encourage me.
Yeah, I would go to that booth.
But I also think we need to do something on the long term. Try to get some at least more reviewers. I mean, more people into the community who is actually active, doing stuff. Because we're kind of vulnerable now with almost all maintainers being from CyberArk. When CyberArk has something going on, they're all gone, which is a bit unfortunate.
When you're bought by Broadcom and everything goes.
Don't threaten me with another requisition. I can't take it. I, you're absolutely right, Eric. Like, we're not going to solve that problem now, for sure.
No.
For context as well, I've said this to Eric, but like the cert manager team at CyberArk is kind of struggling a little bit at the moment because everything that I was doing, I'm no longer doing because I'm about to leave for paternity leave. So everyone else's workload just increased a little bit, and they're all having to like juggle a lot of stuff, which is part of the reason you're not seeing as much of those. And I'm quite free to do it because I've got no directly assigned responsibilities, right? Which like it makes it easier for me and harder for them, and it shouldn't go unsaid. But certainly in the short term, I I don't think anyone should feel bad about asking someone for a review who has permission to do it. It's that should be our culture, I think.
Cool.
I'm just thinking, like, there should already be something out there that just says, for these repos, give me like the PRs and order them by this. But I'm wondering if I did this for Contrib first, didn't I? I sort of went through and scanned repos and pulled out, like, I pulled out issues that needed working on, good first issues. Like, to do a hacky version of that did PRs that said sort of like there must be like a days since raised or like been in review for like 60 odd days or something like that, and then do some sort of ordering, post it somewhere, see if that helps.
I feel like Triage Party does some of that, right?
Don't know, I've never been on one.
let's so this this website does it for this is configured against our org, and it does say like when something was created and last updated or whatever. This is also comes with like an idea of like triaging and saying this thing's high priority or whatever. To me, like the thing that jumps to that highest priority on the list for me is Erik needs help. Like that trumps basically everything else for me, because like that I know the time that's being put in there, and that deserves to have the time given to it to address it. So again, I don't make this a part of my day to day. Maybe it should be. Maybe Triage Party is the thing that we should just be doing. Like it has a receive queue. Don't know what that really means, but there's some fun stuff in there.
I didn't realize it was running all the time. I thought this was a thing you ran when you did a triage party thing. I didn't realize it was there. So
Yeah, I forget where this is hosted, but it's hosted somewhere and it's running.
wonder if that's live as proofs.
Who knows? I enjoy that there's an urgent tab with something in it that was created 4 years ago. Maybe you need to clean that one out. But I again, we're not going to solve the thing here. And like, after this is my last bi-weekly for several months, so the short-term thing should definitely be message Richard, Tim, and Mayal and say like help, because I think they all enjoy it as well. They all enjoy working on cert-manager, and I'm sure when they get a chance, it's a nice distraction. I'm also It doesn't help with CyberArk reliance, but we have new people joining the cert-manager team who are mostly working on closed source stuff, and I'm trying to get them at least a little bit involved in the open source as well. We've seen Laden join some of the um, daily stand-ups. I'm hoping that we've got a new person starting soon. I'm hoping others will get involved in some capacity, because we are planning a percentage of our time towards open source every quarter anyway. That's the best I can say for now.
Yeah, cool. I think that's enough on that agenda point. Thanks.
Sweet. The next is you, Erik, and
Yeah,
we've discussed this a little bit on stand-ups, right?
yeah, we have discussed this a little bit. It's with regards to adding missing list markers to our Go code, which kind of affects characteristics of those fields in the CRDs. So for lists, you can choose between atomic, which is the default, which means the list can only be owned by a single owner, and you have to supply the full list every time you want to do something with it. But you also have things like map and set. Would go much into details here, but now we have added this to all our list fields. That was merged earlier today. So now it remains to decide whether we are willing to do a technical breaking change in our APIs around these things. That means considering it a bug fix. I did the same in upstream project Gateway API, and there they were pretty open to to do some technically breaking changes and consider them to be bug fixes. Because this could, in some very specific scenarios, become breaking for a user. So I just want to hear whether there are some opinions around this. In Kubernetes, they just did this without bumping the API versions. I got a confirmation of that from Stefan Szymanski when I asked on Slack about some general advice on changing these characteristics in APIs.
For my 2 cents, we've discussed this before, and I'm quite comfortable with this break. I think we've made bigger breaking changes than this before.
I was gonna test and see if it like broke anything, but I don't really care at this point. I think it's probably fine. Like if you had a list with 2 items in it being applied from your Git and you're using Argo, your Argo diff would potentially constantly be reconciling, but that's probably something you should fix.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, it's a matter of changing some atomic characteristic to sets eventually. And as long as the duplicates that makes no sense and the order is not relevant, I think it's a pretty safe thing to do. We will, of course, discuss in the PR itself. I link to the PR in the agenda. So there's probably some of these fields we don't want to change to set. Tim has already reviewed it once. But it's good to hear that it sounds like you're generally open to technical break-in changes, considering it to be a bug fix. That's good.
I think if we draw the comparison with changing the private key rotation policy from never to always by default, I think that's a much bigger functional breaking change, but was well worth it, and it was the right call. So I think this is an easy one for me.
Cool.
Do we also add like enum validations and stuff? Like, is that something to?
We added it in your last PR.
Yeah, exactly. But I saw some of the other fields didn't have it. So is that something to be raised as like a bug PR?
I believe we have validation of a lot of these enums just in the webhook.
Yeah.
So there's a larger piece of work to move all the functionality we can out the webhook into either native like enum whatever, but also potentially into cell. Now CRDs have native cell support because I'm pretty sure cell it's been supported way past our minimum Kubernetes version we support at this point. So we're at the point where it's perfectly fine for us to embrace it. But yeah, there's a larger piece of work there that needs to be cracked on of porting it across. I think you made some progress, Erik, on writing some tests for the web.
I'm just going to say that this is actually what I've been doing in Trust Manager. So right now for the new cluster bundle API that I'm working on, we still need to have a webhook because there are some things that are impossible, at least very hard to validate without having a validating webhook. But it's fairly minimal now, so it's very short actually. I think the main problem with when doing this migration, which I totally agree we should do in cert-manager to move things out of the webhooks. Webhooks is something that an operational guy would like to avoid if he or she can. So the main problem is the testing, because most of the tests in Search Manager are based on using the fake client. And then those tests won't test this new stuff when you add it to the CRD or by cell or native stuff. So you need to have the end tests to do that. But everything should be ready to actually do it, but it requires some work. I have already done the work in Trust Manager, and it was quite some job. Ashley has reviewed it, so I'm guessing he can confirm that. So there we actually have two sets of tests. We have the old tests, which are using the normal approach of using the fake client, and then we have the new tests, which have much better coverage, in my opinion. But they are, of course, they are running with the end test, which is a bit slower, and some of the maintainers are not big fans of it. That I know.
I'm waiting for now you've got the Open API broken out. I'm waiting for some project upstream somewhere that can just take that and run it through the API server code and give you a local validation tester.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That would make everything a bit easier.
Because when you for the MTA testing, I find it easier to use Ginkgo, which I know even more maintainers are not enjoying. But I find it hard to find a good pattern for writing standard goal tests with the required lifecycle management that you need to run these simulated control plane tests. Yeah. So I think the answer to your question is yes, Hemant. I think we are open for accepting like more API validations instead of validating webhooks.
Okay, makes sense.
Do you agree, Ashley, Alam?
The thing that scares me about enum validation, especially of strings, is casing, because it really annoys me if I write pem in lowercase and it had to be uppercase and so it'll get rejected. Like, it's just not a meaningful difference, and I kind of just want it to work. Like, why is that being checked so carefully, you know? And it certainly we couldn't add case sensitive enums to anything that's already released because it would break YAML that's out in the wild and stuff, and that would really annoy people.
But there are API best practices. Even if I understand your point here, for existing APIs, we cannot do that without breaking the API.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we try to follow the Kubernetes API design best practices, there is a specific way of doing the casing in an enum ish field.
Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I'm not a zealot about this, and I'm not going to block anything over it. It's just that's something that I worry about. Like, it's a way to make things just a little bit worse in the name of better documentation of the API, I guess. And I'm wary of that. But that's just a thing to bear in mind, not like a blocking thing. Apart from for existing stuff where people will have used case insensitive stuff, and then you just can't add it if it's going to break people.
But do we have any case insensitive enum fields?
I don't know.
Or enum-ish fields, like where you have a limited set of values that you can put in?
It wouldn't surprise me if there was one or two in cert-manager, because there's a lot of fields in cert-manager, but I don't know off the top of my head.
But I'm a big fan of Cell in general. I really love it. The things you can do with it. It really cleans up things and it works. And it runs in the API server, which is really cool.
I use it extensively. I've used it for like immutable fields, for like making this field could like conflicts with this field, all kinds of cool stuff you can do with it.
Yeah.
I like how you can even use it on your webhook configuration now to make sure your webhooks aren't called unless they're required.
I'm looking forward to be able to use Cell for defaulting as well, which you can then add conditional defaults to. That would be super cool. Should we move over to Hemant's points around controller runtime? I'm actually quite eager to hear the history here from you with more experience in cert-manager than me.
Hemant, what would you say is higher priority between that discussion and the PR that you linked, the cluster issue of it?
I think we can take the PR discussion on Slack. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. we have 15 minutes, which we don't often get. So
Controller runtime it is.
yeah.
I think the history, such that there is history, I don't remember any specific details. It's just that cert-manager was originally created before controller runtime, before CRDs were even finalized, I think. So it's like there's a hell of a lot of past history there, and that's why it looks the way that it does. Most of the controllers that exist, it's like there was no controller runtime when it was written in the first place, and it's the kind of thing where it's like it's a difficult thing to justify a change of because it's a fairly big migration to change it. There's loads of ways that it can introduce a subtle difference that will break someone when you've got millions of users. Like it's basically just hard to do a migration effectively and be really confident about it. And also with any migration like this, the best case endpoint is that you're at the same functionality of where you started, right? That's the best case. Like so you run the risk of spending a bunch of time that we don't have much of doing all the work just to end up with no functional difference. And that's not to say that there's no value in having like changes for tech debt improvements and what have you and maintenance. That is fine. It's just it hard to justify that up front, I think, for most people. That's it. Basically, I'm saying there's no like law against using controller runtime. I don't think we need to. I don't think it's not being shunned or like anything like that. It's just that it's not necessarily been worth it to make the change, is my understanding of it.
I also think we could do some other changes to eventually prepare for a controller runtime migration. Things we would have to do anyway. Things around logging, for instance, there's a lot of improvements that could be done there about how we use the log APIs.
Yeah.
And also what comes to my mind is the server-side apply, which will also make the migration to controller runtime somehow simpler, in my opinion. If we get to a place where server-side apply is enabled and cannot be disabled. So I think that is kind of, we are in the middle of that migration, and I've been working on that lately in cert-manager, and I'm planning to continue on it. I had some issues with enabling the server-side apply tests, which should work. I have a feeling there's a test issue. I've asked Tim for some help, but sadly he's not available right now, but he will eventually be, I hope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's super busy right now, but I think it's a very well made point. Like maybe the end goal would be to get to controller runtime in the sort of distant future, but there's a lot of good stuff you can do along the way that isn't just like moving the code so that it runs in controller runtime. Like the logs is a great example. I've like I'm not saying we should do this, but like one ambition of mine is to if I had the time to sit down, I'd love to refactor how we handle certificates and certificate requests such that they're all actually structured as one controller that has a state machine encoded in it to make it clear. Like, because at the moment we've got about 10 different controllers all working on the same resources, and the logic and the flow between them is very difficult to follow for me. And I'd love to, like, it's been discussed to death. I'm not saying we should do it, but that's the kind of thing where it's like, it's a big enough change that maybe it does end up looking like a controller runtime migration anyway, because it's changing a bunch of stuff all at once, you know? It does feel like another part of this as well is that when we've used controller runtime in other projects that aren't cert-manager, like they all use it pretty much. We've regularly had the rug pulled out from underneath us where they've made a breaking change and we've had to come and spend time fixing it in response to what they broke, which are allowed to do as V0 of in Go. They technically can do that. But that doesn't make it a fun experience to depend on it. I think we'd worry about having to depend on it for cert-manager in that respect, but I feel like they've got better at that recently. I've not seen them breaking things with anything like the frequency that they used to do. It felt like it was always it was always a new thing that they'd broken that we had to fix, you know.
I think they still will break things if they find it useful to break. I mean,
Yeah.
considering the value of doing a breaking change. So
Yeah, if controller runtime reached a V1 and they promised not to break things, I would be I'd be much more likely to see the value of adopting it everywhere, just for to have everything unified. I wouldn't block it being adopted everywhere, but it's just I don't think anyone has seen the value. There's other things that need working on that are more value than that.
Not, I mean, you can certainly take and use the more widely accepted parts, the more standardized parts, like the client.client is not having massive breaking changes to it and things like that. There's no harm in things like that at
I,
all.
I only saw earlier today they have a cert watcher thing for watching for updates to certificates. Don't see
Yeah,
a reason
yeah,
we couldn't adopt that in places.
yeah. I mean, that's the same thing as ours. It just isn't on a timer because they were watching the files and it broke too often.
Yeah.
It's just the exact same implementation as us. Um, but yeah, we could certainly grab that and use it. I mean, as you pointed, changing all the time, yeah, that's totally the case. I literally have a wrapper around it, which I use for most of the controllers I write at work, just because I don't want to call Cube Builder, upgrade my Builder, do a create API, and have it just spit out something I'm not expecting.
So
But
I've,
it, there's no if in the right places, embedding the right packages could be easily useful. I mean, we use, for example, the controller runtime to generate CRDs. Like we were already using it, controller tools to generate the CRDs. So it's not like we don't use some of the tools that are helpful.
hmm. Yeah, that's another excellent point. You don't need to adopt all of it for some of it to be useful.
No, and we're never going to be. The repo is so old and controller runtimes trained so often. I'd never say we're going to follow the structure of a standard controller runtime repo. What I can see is using more of the tools. Um, I don't know what the difference is between our reconcile abstraction versus their reconcile abstraction. Um, there might be worth some research to use theirs, but equally ours is pretty rock solid, so it's not like a high priority thing.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, I concur with what you guys said. Like maybe we should like do minor changes and like maybe move towards an eventual goal. But yeah, I totally understand. Like it's a big project. It's a lot of work to reach a point where we are already there. So yeah, I do agree with that.
Yeah, if you're refactoring and it makes sense to use something controller runtime, I'm not going to say don't use something controller runtime.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the dependency is there, so it can be
Yeah.
used if we,
Oh yeah, I'm sure we use client in places.
yeah.
Would not surprise me at all. Yeah, I think I've done a pretty good job there of being neutral about controller runtime, but it annoyed me earlier when I was reviewing Erik's PR. And like the documentation for the reconcile function doesn't say how it treats the values you return when from your own implementation. So like Erik changed something so that it would return an error because that automatically requeues it. But it doesn't say that in the documentation for controller runtime in the Go doc, which is where you should look if you're using a library. I was
The
just
only indication is in the result object, they've got the requeue boolean, which is marked as deprecated with a comment saying, if you want to requeue with backup, return an error, which is
Yep.
like, so a deprecated field tells you about the behavior of error.
exactly like it. It's not good vibes. But that's a very different complaint to like it's also a standard and the vibes don't really matter that much.
Cool.
I feel like we have maybe reached a natural end for
I'm
that.
about to be attacked by a dog, so who wants a dinner? So I should probably head.
Fair enough. In that case, we're pretty much bang on time, so I'll call it an end. If anyone has watched this on YouTube, why? Thank you. Come join the next one.
Leave a
Um,
comment. What was your favorite discussion topic?
yeah. What's your biggest beef with controller runtime? But yeah, this is my last bi-weekly for quite a while, so I will see you all in a few months. Thank you very much, and I'll
Thank
stop the
you.
recording.
Thank you, everyone.